Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine waking up from a dream um, filled with shouting, ancient figures, people literally covering their ears. And then this is the strange part, a giant triangle and eye just appearing in the sky.
Weird.
Yeah, and you're left with this really intense feeling, almost physical, of, you know, unresolved intellectual effort. That's where we're starting this deep dive, dropping right into the mind of the bishop in H.G. Wells's novel, The Soul of a Bishop.
Right, and it's excerpts from this really fascinating book that our listener shared. And it's the story of a man, obviously high up in the church, but who's also confronting the very roots of his own faith.
And the institution itself, right.
Yeah.
And the whole modern world changing around him.
Exactly. So our mission here is to dig into these pages, pull out the key bits, the insights, and really follow the bishop's journey. It's very human doubt, these incredible moments of revelation, and then the messy fallout of trying to live a more authentic faith.
Especially in a world that doesn't seem too keen on change. Let's get into it.
That opening dream, it's so vivid, isn't it? And it ties directly to something recent for him, an uncomfortable dinner party, an argument.
Ah, yes, the dinner party.
About the Trinity, and specifically this tricky theological idea, the spermaticos logos. He felt totally baited during that discussion.
Right, and Wells writes, he admits, at least to himself, the unfortunate aspect of identifying that concept, this idea of divine reason in the world, only with the second person of the Trinity. Feels like a small crack, maybe.
Mm-hmm. But it leaves him feeling exposed. Like those sharp people at the party could tell he didn't really believe the official line he preaches.
There's an immediate insight there, isn't there, how even these subtle theological points can expose huge internal doubts.
Absolutely. And his world outside isn't helping. He's just moved to this new diocese, Princhester,
Yeah.
and the contrast. Wow.
What's it like?
It's described as industrial, ugly, unforgiving. Wells has this incredible line about the cathedral there looking like a lady abbess who had taken to drink and slept in a coal truck.
Wow, that paints a picture. Not exactly inspiring.
Not at all. And it feels to the bishop like a second and much more serious fall. So the insight is how this grim environment, physical and social, just mirrors and worsens his own spiritual unease.
It shows faith isn't just in your head, it's tied to the world you live in.
Oh, no.
But it wasn't just the look of the place, right? There were practical problems, too.
Oh, yeah. Straight away. Practical difficulties, power clashes. There's a big fight over where to build the new bishop's palace. He wants it near his work, practical.
Makes sense.
But the locals, they want something flashy, showy, biggest palace possible. Plus, he's just overwhelmed by the ugliness. Slag roads, smoke, those huge, gaunt electric pylons.
Sounds bleak.
And he feels totally cut off from the people. Wells uses terms like two nations, even two species, for the gap between bosses and workers. He looks at them and thinks, they're not sheep, not little children, like a pastor might traditionally see them.
So a profound disconnect. That must grind him down.
It really does. And this pressure, internal and external, starts affecting his home life. Tensions with his daughter, Eleanor.
What's going on there?
She's young, restless, wants to know things, feels stuff is kept from her, and she's involved in suffragette activities.
So she represents that changing world, pushing right into his personal space.
Exactly. She's the future knocking at his very traditional door. And all this pressure cooker stuff, it starts showing up physically. Insomnia, big time.
The classic sign of deep stress.
And it's linked directly to his intellectual turmoil. The book mentions specific things keeping him awake. Worrying about Eleanor, mentally composing angry speeches, even bird sounds become irritating. A wheezing bird, a boastful blackbird.
He starts questioning everything, even small things.
Yeah, like supporting bird protection societies. His mind is just racing, critical, finding fault everywhere, even with the birds.
And this leads him down a difficult path, doesn't it? Trying to cope.
It does. There's secrecy involved. He starts trying green tea to stay awake and work through things, but later, more seriously, narcotics. Hiding it from his wife.
Adds this layer of quiet desperation. It shows how deep the crisis is. It's not just thoughts, it's consuming him.
Definitely. And all these little questions, these pressures over the years, they kind of snowball into what he calls a general doubt. He feels flimsy and transparent.
Like the world he knew is dissolving.
Exactly. He says it feels diaphanous, like thin fabric, revealing these vast and uncontrollable realities beyond it. The old certainties are just gone.
So he tries to shore things up, maybe study.
He does. He dives into church history, but it actually makes things worse, leads to more insecurity about the very foundations. He comes across ideas like from someone called Chasters, probably a contemporary critic, challenging traditional views.
So he's stuck in that classic bind. Modernism versus tradition. Adapt or stick to the old ways.
Pretty much. And for him, the old creeds feel mechanical and dead. Even the New Testament, it's overfamiliar. The words have lost their power for him.
He's really adrift. We see that back at the party scene you mentioned.
Yeah, that dinner party again. The mix of people, actress, novelist, expert, purist, they all have different takes on religion, some casual, some probing, and that spermaticos logos thing comes up again. He can't escape it.
Nope. It just shows his internal crisis is bleeding into his public life.
But then, amid all this doubt, there's a connection, an unlikely one.
Yes, with Lady Sunderbund, she's wealthy, energetic, maybe a bit intense. She seeks him out.
Why him?
She talks about her own spiritual searching, her weariness with the old ways, and she's drawn to his idea, maybe just hinted at, of the creed being a symbol, not literal fact.
Ah, so she senses his unorthodoxy.
Perhaps. They talk about a new religion, which gives him this glimpse maybe of other ways to think about faith outside the formal church. Someone else feels it too.
Interesting. So his internal struggle eventually pushes him to seek help, medical help.
Yes, but it's not your typical doctor visit. He sees a Dr. Dale who has a really unusual take.
How so?
Dale says it's not just physical, it's a disorganization of your tests of reality. He calls it a quickening of the critical faculty. Basically, his ability to question things is heightened and amplified by all the external stresses.
So not just stress, but a fundamental shift in how he sees reality. That's how Dale frames it. He contrasts his approach with, say, a Dr. Brighton Pomfrey who would just try to patch things up, restore the old sphere of illusion, put the blinkers back on.
But Dale doesn't want to do that.
No. Instead, he offers a mysterious tonic.
And does he take it?
It seems so, because after taking something, presumably Dale's tonic, he has this incredible experience. The world just vanishes. Golden light. An angel.
Wow. Full-blown vision.
Yeah. And the key takeaway isn't some new doctrine. It's this deep, almost physical need for God. He realizes the old knowledge, the creeds, patched up speculations, a mummy of ancient disputes. That's not where God is.
So the insight isn't intellectual, it's experiential.
Exactly. He knows God is. Not from books, but from this direct feeling, this need that the traditional church hadn't met for him.
That must have been powerful. How does he feel afterwards?
A sense of clarity, security, even though he finds himself back in a very mundane place, the library at his club. But the biggest realization hits him then. Disbelief in the church now feels like a deeper skepticism than disbelief in God. It's the institution, the structure that feels unreal or maybe irrelevant, not the divine itself.
That's a huge shift.
Huge. And the idea of leaving the church starts to form, not just as a possibility, but as something maybe dictated by the true God he just encountered.
But that wasn't the end of the visions.
Oh, the angel comes back, a second vision. This time he sees the earth spinning and he's shown signs of the coming of God.
Where are these signs? In churches.
That's the point. No, they're in these really specific, unexpected places. A Brahmin talking to a painter in India. Norwegians around a drowned German sailor.
Ordinary people.
Exactly. The thoughts of a German soldier questioning war, seeing human unity, a German diplomat in Washington. The insight is that God's spirit is breaking through, not in the usual channels, but in the common, unhampered man, in these moments of connection and questioning across the globe.
That creates a stark contrast with the church he knows.
Devastatingly stark. While God is showing up like this, what are the religious leaders doing? Focusing on church and creed and nation and king and property and partisanship.
All the institutional stuff.
Right. He even critiques Constantine at Nicaea, sees it as the moment worldly power, Caesar, tried to share mankind with God, mixing state control with faith. He sees priests today clinging to antiquated Alexandrian subtleties, these old, obscure debates, while the ordinary people are out of hand and hostile.
So the very institutions meant to connect people to God are actually getting in the way.
That's the stark realization. They're focused on the wrong things, blinding people, while the divine is happening elsewhere.
And this massive internal shift, it has to have consequences in his life. How does he even start to explain this? To his wife, Lady Ella.
It's tough. Her first reaction is horror. She calls him mad. She's terrified of scandal, calls it a white blackbird incident, something freakish and unwelcome. She wants to believe he's just ill.
Trying to normalize it, pathologize it, rather than face the spiritual reality.
Exactly. Anything but accept the implications.
And then comes that scene in the cathedral. That sounds explosive.
It really is. It's an ordination service. He gives an address criticizing how religion gets trapped in formulae and asseverations, calls narrow orthodoxy a damnable heresy.
Whoa. Strong words for a bishop at an ordination.
He says the cathedral isn't the container of faith, just a door to something wider. Then, unplanned, a second address. He announces God is imminent, coming now.
And the vision returns then.
Right then. And he changes the benediction. Instead of the standard blessing, he says, "The blessing of God, who is the Father, the Son, the Spirit, and the King of all mankind, be upon you." Adding, King of all mankind, that's radical. It reframes God's sovereignty as present, universal beyond the church.
How did people react?
Astonishment, utter shock. Canon Bliss is horrified, muttering about dreadful things. Greek, meaning theological error, suggests the bishop has aphasia, like he's lost his mind.
And his wife.
Lady Ella rushes in, worried, arranging for a doctor immediately, and she insists on talking to the doctor first, still trying to manage it as illness.
So inevitably he resigns.
Yes. And Wells describes what happens next. House hunting in London is desolating. He suddenly sees the power landlords have. England's necessity is the landlord's opportunity.
A harsh dose of reality outside the church bubble.
It sparks a kind of practical socialism in him. He sees the injustice firsthand.
And Lady Ella, how does she handle this new life?
Her journey is really interesting. Starts with horror, fear of disgrace. But eventually she accepts it, supports him, surprises him even. She tells him, "I'm with you," and quotes Ruth from the Bible. "Whither thou goest, I will go, thy God, my God." Her loyalty shifts from the institution to him. It's quite moving.
A parallel journey for her too then. But leaving the church doesn't solve everything for him, does it? The struggle continues.
No, not at all. Months later, the insomnia is back. He feels like he's losing that connection to God, bogged down in petty immediacies, just the daily grind.
That's relatable. The sublime fades.
He goes back to Dr. Brighton Pomfrey, the conventional doctor this time, and he asks for the drug again, the one that maybe triggered the vision. He wants that clarity back to make decisions.
He admits he needs help staying focused.
Yeah, he says he's easygoing, prone to lassitudes, periods of just drifting. But Brighton Pomfrey warns him off. Drugs, says they lead to rapid moral decay, offers the conventional moral standpoint.
So he's tempted by a shortcut back to that certainty. Meanwhile, how's the world reacting to his big break?
He gets letters. One from a like man is really cutting, calls him theatrical, self-important, basically dismisses the whole thing.
Ouch.
Then there's Lady Sunderland again, enthusiastic, but maybe too much so. She wants to bankroll a first church of the world, unified under God, sees herself as his temple servant.
That sounds complicated. Another pitfall.
He thinks so. He debates it internally, sees her grand project as an absurdity. He knows he doesn't have the energy or ruthlessness to manage her or her money, feels she'd smother him.
So he has to break with her.
Yes, even though she pleads. It leads to another key insight about himself. He realizes he's a man of intellectual moods, of sudden insights, but not cut out for continuous public ministry, running a church. That's not his strength.
His strength is the insight itself, maybe, not the organizing.
Exactly. And this leads him to rethink belief itself. He realizes that constant, conscious connection to God, it's impossible for humans, contrary to the nature of life.
So belief isn't about always feeling it.
No, it's a persuasion, he decides. Something built on and sustained by remembered glimpses, those moments of clarity, the visions, you hold on to those.
And if belief is like that, individual and intermittent,
Then there can be no creed defining him for all men, no single ritual or priesthood that holds the key. Any attempt to bottle God fails.
so it's left.
God is God. That becomes enough of a creed for him. It acknowledges the ultimate reality, but resists definition. All human ways of describing God are true and false at the same time, because they're limited.
So what matters then?
What matters, he thinks, is the unifying kingship without and within. That impulse towards unity, connection, breaking down barriers, the thing he saw happening globally in his vision, and the struggle for it inside yourself.
So his job is to tell people about this understanding of faith.
Yes, that's his task. But how? The method is still unclear. He needs a way that doesn't confuse, doesn't rely on him burning out or getting tangled in difficult alliances like Lady Sunderbun's offer. He has the message, but not the medium, maybe.
And Wells brings us back to Earth after all this, back to his family.
He does. We see the contrast, these huge internal shifts, and then the quiet domestic scene, family knitting, doing homework, reading in their new, slightly cramped London house. Ordinary life continues.
Those petty immediacies he struggles with.
Right. He tries to explain to his kids why he left the church, admits he lost belief in the Orthodox stuff, points to Princhester, the harshness, the church's failure to help.
And the war. That was a factor, too.
A big one. He saw the clergy as genteel condoners of the violence, doing their priestly mummeries instead of crying out for God's kingdom, that unity he now believes in.
And Lady Ella's journey really stands out here, too.
It really does. From that initial horror, she's come so far, full acceptance, support. She even questions her own church identity, saying, I don't mind not being a conventional churchwoman anymore. Her focus is entirely on him, on their connection. That whither thou goest, quote, says it all.
But Wells adds a little complexity there, a slight doubt from the bishop.
Yeah, a slightly troubling thought from him. He's almost dissatisfied with her easy agreement. Wonders why others, his wife, Lady Sunderbund, can't find God directly, why they seem to need him as a conduit.
A touch of spiritual pride, maybe.
Or loneliness. He even thinks that a wife, a disciple, a lover can be a fatal pitfall for a man seeking God. A distraction. It adds a layer of, well, human complexity to him. He's not perfect.
And the book leaves us with a very stark image, doesn't it? Cutting through all the theology.
It does. He sees a young soldier heading off to war. Just a lad like a schoolboy, he thinks. Going to die because of political foolery, because nations are fighting, and because priests and teachers like him failed. Failed to speak God's word. Failed to promote that unifying kingship. Failed to stop the madness.
That image really lands the cost. The real-world consequence of all the institutional failures he's rejected.
It grounds everything. His journey from doubt inside the church to this profound, personal, but sometimes elusive connection outside it. He's found something real, but he's left wrestling with how it fits into the harsh realities of the world.
It's such a powerful picture of that struggle, isn't it? Between personal conviction and the sheer messiness of the world, of relationships. How do you hold on to those remembered glimpses when daily life takes over? What does it mean to find your own way when the old paths feel false?
Yeah, and if this Bishop's journey suggests God isn't primarily in the old creeds or the big institutions, but maybe more in, unexpected kindness, that struggle for unity, the hard reality of human cost, it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Where might you look for the divine in your own world?